Hello and welcome. This is the first time I'm actually trying streaming, so we're gonna see how this goes. I'm gonna treat this like I would a recording, and I'm just gonna talk as though I have an audience of 100 people, even though I'm probably gonna be the only person here, and that's totally fine. This is actually a stream for me to get back into game development. It really isn't necessarily a stream for me to entertain, but if that happens and somebody wants to tune in either on the VOD or live, then by all means feel free. We are going to switch our settings over here, so we're going to start just by muting the music. I think that worked, I don't know. We're experimenting, we're learning as we go. Okay, there we go, that's good there. My microphone is on, yes, okay. I'm going to switch to the desktop audio so that I can actually get some sounds going for when we do some playtesting here. And okay, here we go. I am going to close that screen for now. Yep, good, okay. There we go. And I think we're good. Here we are. Can you see my screen? Let's find out real quick. Yes, you can. Okay. Had to test that because this is the first time I'm doing this. I have no idea what I'm doing, but we're gonna learn as we go. Okay, so I am getting back into Thrall. The main thing that I want to do today is I'm actually going to add a entry to the guide, and I'm going to show you what I mean here. I'll go full screen for this, I hope. Maybe I'll go full screen. I also want to make sure I don't accidentally hit the wrong button and end the stream prematurely. That would be really embarrassing. No, we're not going to go full screen. Okay, never mind. Here. Let's do that, even though the picture quality massively decreases. Doesn't matter. So what we want to do today is this guide. I would like to simplify this. Oh, hello, hello! I have a person. Okay, I can't really see chat very easily. I'm watching the chat on my phone, which means there's going to be some latency. Hey, Plexi, how you doing as well? All right, sweet. Okay, well, I'm going to do my best to keep you guys at least somewhat entertained. The objective for today is, in this guide, I want to add a category between status ailments and loot. And I want to add a compendium of all the monsters that you've come across so far. With just a brief description and what their strengths and weaknesses are. This is partly inspired by actually your game, Plexi. I just finished my playthrough of Relics of Aurelia yesterday, and I was really enjoying how the different enemies have different strengths and weaknesses, and I really wanted to make the best of that in Thrall, because right now combat kind of plays out the same way no matter where you are. Every enemy is fairly similar, and I want to change that. So, you know, there are some differences, like for example, slimes have this ability where they can combine with other slimes, and it will actually merge their health together. Thanks, Plexi. Yeah, like it'll merge their health together, it'll actually make them one bigger, beefier slime. But I wanted to actually add a little bit more to that. Like, okay, you know, the initial slime, just the one on its own, it's going to have a little bit less HP and like overall lower stats, but then the bigger slime will have beefed stats. Glad it can help get some juices flowing. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and that's one of the cool things about this community of you know, developers, whether it's RPG Maker or not, is that we can each kind of inspire each other. So yeah, I'm honestly, I'm just happy to get back into development. But anyway, yeah, no, actually I should kind of point something out here, is that the way that the stats are working in Thrall is a little bit different than it traditionally would in RPG Maker. These are actually not base stats. These are percentage values for these stats. So this here is basically the base health for monsters at level 1. This is the health for monsters level 2. It goes through a couple different multipliers and parameters to actually adjust it, but these are actually all the stats for all monsters from level 1 to 99. And then these are percentages that vary that based on the species. So this monster will have 75% of the HP of a normal monster with those full stats. So one of the things we're going to be doing today, I actually did a little bit of this yesterday, is we went through each of these enemies and we gave them some variation, gave them a little bit more flexibility. So for example, the vines have a little bit less attack and a spirit, but they use this grow ability, which buffs their max HP, their attack, and their spirit, but it cuts their agility in half. Snecks are weak magic users. They have a little less defense, and they're a little bit slow, but they do have a critical hit bonus. Now, this actually has been changed as well. Every enemy has a 5% crit chance. This just gives it an extra 10% chance. I've pretty much modified everything in this engine so that everything does something different from what it would normally do by default. And today what I want to do is I want to go and actually in GIMP, which I have here, using some of let's see here, we're going to open up our guide file, and we're actually going to create some enemy guides. We're also going to do a little bit of coding to actually implement this as its own separate thing. So what we're going to do, let's actually start with the implementation in the script editor. Okay, so these are all the scripts that I'm using for Thrall, and this here is the guide, config, and implementation. So the config is basically every entry, whereas the implementation is the code that makes it all run. So the first thing that we want to do is actually we're going to have to add a second or a fifth category, and I think I want it to go between the statuses and the loot. So let's add a category here, and we'll call it enemies. I have to be careful to press the right buttons, because otherwise I may just accidentally end the stream, and that would be embarrassing. I need to get a bit of a better setup, but this is we're learning as we go. Okay, so we've added a category for enemies. We do need to add an icon for it in that guide window as well. So let's add, let's see, okay. For the category enemies, we need to assign it an icon ID. Okay, well, let's actually just do this. I'm going to have to make sure I remember where I left off, because it's going to break if I try anything right now. What icon should we pick for enemies? We could do the skull. That's fairly... that would work. What else? Let's see, we got a bunch of weapons and armors. I don't really think any of that's really fitting. I think the skull might be the best way to go. Yeah, nothing else is really jumping out at me. So let's go with the skull. So that would be icon ID 5. So that's icon ID 5. Make sure we add the comma. Okay, so we've got the category, we got the icon, and I think that's actually all we need to do to add the category. I'm pretty sure everything aligns itself naturally already anyway. So let's just give that a test, see what shows up. Okay, yeah, so the icon is there. It is not labeled enemies, though. It is labeled loot. Okay, so I need to find out where it's labeling that. I think that's actually an implementation. Ah, yes, okay, auto-revealing guides as well. That's something we're going to have to figure out when we get to that point. Right now, there's a lot of guides that I don't want auto-revealed, because it's things like loot guides for different weapons and armors. Let's see. Oh, here it is. Okay, perfect. That's a lot of branching if-else statements. I could probably turn that into just a case when. Let's actually do that. Let's make that a little bit cleaner. So case category index, when 0, when 1, when 2, and then else loot, just so that we do have a catch-all just in case it does something we don't intend. But then we'll do when 3, text is equal to enemies. Yes? Yeah, that should work. Okay, let's apply that and see if that worked. If the Okay, there we go. Sorry, just making sure everything's working still. Good. Okay. Yeah, combat, world, status, there we go, enemies, and loot. So now the idea that we want to do today is we want to populate this with a list of basically every type of enemy that we can find. And we actually don't want to auto-reveal that, because there's some enemies that we don't want to let the player know that you're going to be facing until you've actually faced them. But I would like to have something that the player can access at any moment to be like, oh, you know, what can I do to better overcome that enemy? If I'm facing a slime, you know, what's its strengths, what's its weaknesses? I want to have that kind of displayed here. And I would like it to follow this kind of format here, where it's just got the name. I will have to figure out what I want to do for icons. If I may need to actually create an entire separate list of icons that's maybe just a portion of the enemy sprite, so that it does align nicely with the guide. We'll see about that. I'm not entirely sure if that's what I want to do. But yeah, I do want to have it be at least in the same kind of format, this kind of text format. Now, this isn't actually typed out text. This is an image file. And the reason for that is because I had this same type of guide in Bloodstained Hands, but it was all text-based. The problem with that is that formatting paragraphs of text in RPG Maker is incredibly slow, and changing categories would actually lag the game. It's actually, this part here is text-based, and when this gets to be too long and too massive, it lags the game when you can actually maybe see it a little bit there. There's a slight delay when you go down to the rare armor prefixes, and that's only 10 out of 56. So these are image files. They are not actually formatted text. So we're going to be creating those image files here for these enemies, and yeah, honestly, this might be a little bit boring, but it's no. Where am I going? Okay, yeah. Might be a little bit boring. I'm hoping it won't be. I'm hoping this will be at least somewhat interesting to watch. But this is essentially my guide template from GIMP that I use to create these things. So let's start nice and simple. Let's start with the slime. Let's start by bringing in a character sprite. And the nice thing is, actually, yeah, I do have these all set aside as they're just individual top cell. That will make this a lot smoother than going to, say, the characters and trying to sort it out that way. So we'll go with the slime. Bring that in. And let's go with this. Okay, hold on. First off, enable the grid. And let's configure that grid. Let's make it so that it's 16 pixels by 16 pixels. We'll have to set it back to 24 for the text alignment. Oh wait, no, I don't need to do that. Never mind. Ignore me. There we go. Okay. Yes, that should be fine. Okay, we'll start by blah. There we go. I'm still getting used to the new computer, and GIMP does not quite have all the settings I'm used to, but we'll figure this out. So we're going to name this guide slime, singular, not plural. And, okay, this is the text box for all the actual dialogue. We're going to slide that down a little bit. Yeah, have the slime, the bottom of the sprite aligned with the bottom of that line. That should be good. And now, okay, we don't need the title twice. There. So, what do we want to do for these slimes? What do we want to, what kind of information do we want to provide? A brief description might be nice, but I don't really know if that'll actually be necessary. Traits for sure. Now, I don't know if we want to include specific stat ranges, because these are leveled enemies, and a level 5 slime is going to have different stats than a level 1 slime. But I think, if nothing else, a description to start for each enemy is... yeah, that's a good place to start. So we'll go with that. Let's go, hold on. That is not supposed to be size 13, that's supposed to be size 14. There we go. That'll align nicely with the 24 pixel height. GIMP has a steep learning curve. Yeah, it can. It's, I would say it has a more manageable learning curve than Photoshop has cost, personally. I think that, yeah, if you're completely new to it, or if you're familiar with other image editors and you're trying to wrap your head around a new one, then yeah, it can definitely be a bit of a learning curve. Um, I started using GIMP when I started working on parallax mapping with bloodstained hands, and I think I I had a lot of help. I had quite a few people showing me tutorials on how GIMP works specifically for parallax mapping in RPG Maker, and that got me really familiar with it. And then just over the course of like 5 years or so of doing that every single day for hours a day, I set up my own hotkeys. I figured out what the most efficient and effective way to do things was. Um, so I wouldn't say it's the least user-friendly software, but I can see how it would have a bit of a learning curve for sure. But yeah, it's also free, so that immediately kind of puts it at a little bit of a higher value for me than Adobe Photoshop. I am just going to mute my phone because that would be embarrassing if that notification came across on the microphone. Okay, yes, let's add a description to this slime. What do we want to say? A sentient gelatinous blob. Mostly harmless, but dangerous in groups. Because the idea with them is that when they merge together, they become more dangerous. So just a simple 2-line description. I think we'll do something like that for each enemy type. And now, let's see. Traits. What's the next thing that category we want to include for this guide? I'm thinking we want to include what its main strength is, or its unique trait, as well as its main weakness. And actually clearly spell that out in a way that is formatted consistently across the board between different enemies. So for example, if I just type out a sentence of what its strengths are, like strengths, it has big attack. Well, that's going to be a little bit inconsistent as opposed to if I say increased damage and defense. Because now for, let's say, a snake, I can change this and say increased damage and dex, and I can keep that formatting consistent, and it'll just be a little bit more of a consistent visual language for the player. So I do want to make sure that however I do this, it's going to be easy to replicate across different enemy entries. I think strengths, weaknesses, unique traits. So we'll go with strengths, and we'll actually just refer to the database. So what is a slime's strength? Honestly, it really doesn't have one. It is the basic starting enemy. On its own, it does not have a strength, as compared to something like a snake, which has increased critical hit ratio. So I would say that its main strength is actually, comparatively to everything else that you would fight in that dungeon, let's put context of where and when you're fighting it into consideration as well, because there's snakes, which have a little lower defense. There's thralls, which are kind of your standard enemy that just have across the board even stats. That's actually your benchmark enemy. And then there's bats, I think, that have very low health, but they appear in large numbers. Whatever you've used most often works best. Sometimes it would technically be better to learn a new software, but after years of using one you know, so many tricks that it's hard to switch. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, that's why I'm using RPG Maker VX still. I'm not even using VX Ace. I'm using VX because I've used this software for 15 years. I understand it inside and out. I understand how every single one of these scripts works basically inside and out, to where I can configure the engine to do whatever I want it to do. There are still some engine limitations, regardless of how good of a coder I am. But yeah, I mean, I could probably have switched to MV or MZ, but I like sticking with what I know. And I know you're talking about GIMP there, not necessarily Photoshop, but or the RPG Maker. But I completely agree. But anyway, back to the enemy strengths. I think for slimes, there's not really much we can say. They really don't have a strength. So is it okay to say no strengths? I think so, because the ability to combine is what I would call a unique trait. That's something that it does, that it's a unique enemy behavior that gives it a strength, but this thing on its own doesn't actually have a natural strength. I may explain what this whole party level 13 or above thing does, because that's actually different than what the engine default is, but let's figure this one out first. Let's do at least one entry, and then I'll maybe go into that. So, I mean, really, it doesn't have a critical bonus. It doesn't have any increased stats. So I think we're just going to say strengths none, because the slime does not have any strengths. Weaknesses. Well, it's got fairly low health, attack, spirit, and agility. But I would say its biggest weakness is its agility. Or in this game, it would be dexterity. And maybe its health as well. So let's say slightly reduced HP. We'll try to keep things in order as well. So we'll go HP, damage. Hold on, that's the other thing. Stats are kind of categorized by offensive and defensive stats. So we could say the offensive stats first, which would be damage, dexterity, spirit, crit, and hit rate. And then defensive stats next, which would be HP, defense, resistance, and evasion. Yeah, I think that might be the way to go. So we'll go offensive stats first and then defensive stats second. And we'll highlight the most glaring weaknesses. We're not necessarily going to go into detail about every single thing that this enemy has. But we'll say its weaknesses are reduced dexterity and slightly reduced health. We'll say greatly reduced. See, now, greatly reduced as compared to what? That's the other thing. If someone's reading this guide for the first time and they're just like, well, greatly reduced dexterity, what reduced in context of what? So we could say very low, low, moderate, high, or very high, if we're just going to go on like a general scale. And then maybe in a different guide I can explain, like, okay, enemies are kind of based in context of thralls, which are sort of your benchmark across the board enemy. But we'll say weaknesses, very low dexterity, low HP. There we go. And because this is sort of like a bullet point, I'm not going to put a period at the end. Instead, I'm just going to leave it like that. And then we'll go with unique traits. And this is where I can add a little bit more explanation for each individual enemy, because every trait is going to be unique. Can combine with other slimes, granting increased HP and restoration to the recipient. Can combine with other slimes, granting increased HP and restoration to the recipient. So yeah, when two slimes combine, the recipient receives the HP that was remaining of the one that gave it to them, and it restores their health by that amount. I don't know if adding the word restoration is necessary there. That might just be confusing. Granting increased HP to the recipient. That might actually just be good enough. Let's just see how that reads out. Can combine with other slimes, granting increased HP to the recipient. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, I think the assumption then would be that it gains that HP, not just max HP, but to its current HP as well. So that's good. Oh, by the way, welcome both to, is that Nalkar? I hope I said that right. And Name Unoriginal. I read your comment out, but I didn't actually give you a shout out. Okay, so I think that's good on its own. We've got a description, list of strengths, weaknesses, and a unique trait. Honestly, with weakness, I would expect something that helps me beat it faster, like more damage from fire rather than the worst stat. That's fair. Now, with Thrall, in every troop, you have one enemy that's just kind of a common type, and then three that have a chance of appearing. So you can get just one or up to four, and each one that has a chance of appearing has a chance of being a variant. So, for example, a fire slime could appear, or an ice slime, or shock slime, or weak slime. There are four main elements. And then there's also, we have elite slimes, which are really, really tough enemies that offer affixes that affect the entire party. We have big slimes, which have tons of health, increased attack, but half the agility. And then we have pale slimes, which are healers. And every enemy has that type of variant. So stating an elemental weakness is actually going to be dependent on which variant you're fighting. But I do get your point. Like, yeah, saying something that helps you beat it faster would probably be more descriptive. But I think, this is kind of where I'm going back to what I picked up on from Relics of Aurelia, is that, sometimes even just figuring out what stat an enemy is proficient or weak in can help you kind of gear up against that type of enemy. For example, like if you're up against an enemy that's got really, really high accuracy, then having really high evasion might not actually do much for you. But if they've got really low accuracy, you can exploit that by equipping armors that give you more evasion. Or alternatively, if you're facing an enemy that's really, really slow, you can equip a weapon that's got really high dex, and you'll be able to outpace it, 9 times out of 10, and maybe even get 2 attacks off for every one of theirs, kind of thing. So stats is really all I have to work with when it comes to this kind of stuff, but it does, I think, play into the loot system well enough that we can see where that goes. And this is all subject to change. This is mostly just, I want to get back into development so bad, and this is the best way to at least get started that I can think of. Okay, we're gonna leave it at that for now. I don't want to go too far into depth with this. We're gonna keep it simple. What did I just do? Oh no. I don't know. I just disabled grid. Okay. Snap to canvas edges. That's what I need. There we go. And now we're going to select this. Make sure I've got one line height past that. Disable the background. Crop to selection. We're going to export this. And we'll call it... Oh, yes. Okay, I have to go by guide numbers here. So we're going to go to our pictures folder. And what is our last guide? 208. Ignore the 666 on. That's a reference to a legendary weapon called the Devil. Guide 209 is what this one's going to be. Guide 209. Export. Export. Good. Okay. And now let's bring that in and see what we can do to make that actually work. So let's see. Open a new tab. I'm realizing something, but I'm not going to say it. That's fine. Where was I? Right here. Okay. Pictures, projects, good. Okay, we're going to take this, bring it over here. There we go. That's in the pictures folder now. So now let's go into our config part of the guide and add this to the list. We're going to have to go pretty far down. Ah, right. Okay, I forgot about that. There's prefix guides that we need to worry about as well. And wait a second, what? Oh, right. No, okay, that's right. These are the ID numbers for the guide. That's the file number for the guide. 209. Yes. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the... Let's just copy an entire category from world. There we go. We'll take this one. And auto reveal being true, we'll leave that on for the time being, and then we'll have to implement a way to make it. We'll have to make create a way so that the guides get revealed as you encounter these enemies. And we may not do that today. I'm not actually planning on going super late today, maybe about an hour and a half, 2 hours, because I do have a jiu-jitsu class later that I want to get to, and a couple other things, but this is kind of just a test to see how streaming for the first time goes. So name, we'll call this slime. The guide is guide 209. The category, we're going to push it into enemies. Auto reveal will set to true. Icon index, that's the next thing we need to do. Now, I'm not entirely sure if I want I don't think I can edit this in... No, okay, I'm used to a different image editor for that particular one. We'll go with this here, Thrall. Graphics, system, icon set, there it is. And yeah, that's in a separate tab. Good, okay. So for this one, we need to add some more icons for the enemies. This is going to be 24 by 24. Good. Let's go to battlers. Where's my slimes? Where's my slims? There they are. Okay, we'll take this one down here, and we're going to find a way to kind of put most of this in an icon tab to make it look like it can at least be an icon. It doesn't necessarily have to be perfect. Here's what I think we'll do. We'll center it like that. Yeah. Then we'll select 24 by 24. We'll slide that over, snap that to the center line there. Why is that not snapping properly? There we go. Good. And then we will take that. Good. There we go. Take this and move it over here. There we go. Now we have a slime icon. It's not necessarily going to work perfectly for everything, but it may at least work for this one. We will replace that, export that. Done. And now that icon is... Oh dear. Okay. What's that icon ID? Simplest way of doing this. Let's get the coordinates of that. That is 96 by 1296. So 1296, that's the height. Let's divide that. Oh no. Oh no, I can't hit that button. If I hit that button, I think I... Okay, 1296 divided by 24. Yes? Yeah. So it's in the 54th row down, I believe. We're just going to try with this for a second here. So 54, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 54 times 16, because there's 16 across, is 864. So I believe this is icon 864. I think so. The math is messing with my head right now. It doesn't matter. It's been a while since I've done this. 869, I believe, is the icon for that. So we'll see if that works, and then we'll, if it doesn't, we'll just adjust. 869. Good. Okay, I think that's it. I think that's everything. We'll go to the implementation, because I do need to auto-reveal some things here. For I and 1 to 114, that's the initialize, and then this is the refresh. We need refresh for now. Okay. I was going to do that for multiples, but I think I'll just do it for one right now. This is ID 216. 216. If auto reveal at 0 is on. Yep. Guide at 216 concealed is false. There we go. Okay. Let's see if we messed anything up. No immediate game crash, so that's good. Okay, well, that's not what I was hoping for. We may actually need that for the initialize as well. I don't think so, but maybe. No, not in the for loop. There we go. Oh, if guides is equal to nil, that's why. So that may not actually work. I may need to manually reveal it, which is fine. We can do that too. Yeah, no, we'll have to manually reveal that. That's okay. And let's just do this. This might break it, but we're going to experiment. I haven't worked with the guide in quite a while, so I'm not entirely sure I remember how to... There we go. Okay. All right, well, the icon definitely didn't assign correctly, but it seems to have worked. We have ourselves a slime in the guide now. That's great. Now we just got to do that for all the other different species. But first, let's figure out why that icon isn't displaying. That icon should be there. I think I just got the number wrong. Oh, hold on. Yeah, it's 16 across. I think I may have gone one too far down. One row too far down. So that's 869 minus 16 is 853. We'll try that instead. I think that's correct. It might be 862, actually, now that I think about it, because I think it counts from 0, not from 1. Escape. Escape? Okay, no, I wasn't a row behind, I was just one behind. Okay, alright, that makes sense. So 868, there we go. Now we got the right icon. We'll see how that displays. Let's see how that looks. There we go. Okay, it does look a little bit awkward being that large of an icon. It's not consistent with these, which makes me think maybe I should give it like a border of some kind. Something like maybe like one of these kind of border icons here. It doesn't have to be that exact thing. I could, you know, adjust the coloring in the background and make it look a little bit cleaner. But then if the slime was sitting on top of that, that might make it look like it actually fits a little bit better. You know, let's just try that. We'll just start by duplicating that slime icon, move it over a little bit. Are you going to do color highlights for the enemy text? Could look nice. Yeah, I could definitely do that. I'm not really sure what text I should highlight. You know, as an example, for the skill things, these are actually the same type of files. I've got the you know, elements and like penalties are in red, bonuses are in green, and then when you look at things like elements, let's look at Mel here. So fire is orange, ice is blue, shock is purple, that kind of thing. So yeah, there is highlighted colored text for that, but I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, what should I highlight? I mean, I could maybe highlight the stats, and maybe even things like for lower stats, highlight them in red, and then improved stats, highlight them in green. I could do something like that. It would definitely break up the monotony of the image a little bit, a little less plain and boring. It is basically just a wall of text right now. Yeah, I'll think about that. I'm not entirely sure what that would look like, but we'll think of something. I'm realizing I should actually probably disable the music, because I don't think it would get muted on the stream, because it is music that the creator allows to have on YouTube. But I don't think... I don't know how that would work for streams. Okay, let's... Oh, no, okay, what did I do? No. I gotta remember the hotkey. There it is, hue saturation. I'm just gonna go with a plain gray box. What is that hand? What is that hand? Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. That looks awful. Also, why is it not working? Just spitballing. Oh. Oh yeah, if you already have a system, maybe it doesn't make sense, but I was thinking something like having very, very low, etc. have their own color. Yeah, no, actually, I like that idea. I think that that could work. Why is that not changing color? I have preview on. Split view? I don't understand. What is happening? Why have you betrayed me, GIMP? Layer. Colors. Saturation. Let's just try that. What is wrong? Why is it not working? What is this? Layer effects. Layer effects? What? I've never seen that before. Oh dear. Oh no. Wow, how can I not adjust the saturation here? What is going on? Am I losing my mind here? What is going on? Edit layer attributes? Let me take a look at something here. No, nothing's locked. Mode is normal. Blend space comps. Okay, yeah. No, everything looks normal there. I don't know what I'm... Wow, okay. This is not the problem that I thought would come up on the stream, is being able to use an image editor. A thing that I have done countless times and has never given me trouble before. I don't understand. I genuinely don't understand. Okay. Fine. Sure. We'll just go with the red background for now. I don't know how that looks. That might look worse. I definitely don't like the red. I would rather something more neutral, but... Well, let's see if it fits more with the existing system. Oh, hold up. If it does, great. If it doesn't, no big deal. We can... I'll fix what's going on in the image editor later. I have no idea. I've never encountered that issue before, where it just won't let me actually edit the layer. That looks a little more fitting. It does look a little bit squished, but I'm going to have to figure something out for that anyway. Now, that's also going to make things really, really difficult for some of the larger enemy sprites. In which case, I could probably come up with an alternative, but... Yeah, I don't really know. I don't want to overthink it. We'll stick with that for now, and then we may revisit that later. I might revisit that off stream. I'm going to keep all of these icons just kind of set aside in the corner, and we will actually create a new row. There we go. We'll merge those two together. We'll bring that down here. This here can go here, there, and that's where we'll just kind of add more rows for the... Well, we'll start a new row for this set of icons, and we're going to have to increase the size, but we won't worry about that right now. I don't think we're going to do quite so many. But let's do another guide or two. Oh, before I do though, I do want to explain that other thing here. So this here. The action conditions for RPG Maker VX were fairly limited back in the day, but I found a way to work around that. So this here, this ability, the combine ability that slimes can use, by the engine default, this would mean that it could only be used if the party level is at 13 or above. I have changed this. And this is now, I believe it's under Game Troop. No, not Game Troop. Game Enemy. No. I think it is Game Troop. Nope, that's a battle event page. Okay. Condition. It is not game troop. Is it game enemy? No, it is not. Battle action. It is not. What am I missing? Unit? No. It's not battler. I know it's not battler. It would help if I spelled condition correctly. That's if a battle event page meets the condition. So no, it's not troop. I think it is game enemy. There we go. Yep, determine if action conditions are met. This is where I managed to actually edit that. So I have hard-coded conditions now. When you select parameter 5, which just so happens to be party level at 32 or above, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that basically checks what this parameter is and then runs code based on that. So for example, if you've selected that parameter, now you check to see what the selected parameter actually is. So in this case, 13 or above. And if we go down to 13, it checks to see if there's a random living ally target. So it basically creates an array of all the existing game troop members, pushes them into the array if they are not dead, and then if the array is less than 1, in other words, there's nothing there, then it returns false. Otherwise, it selects a target at random from that array and then uses the ability on that. So what that basically does is that at any point, these slimes will choose one of their random allies, not themselves, and not from an empty array, and they will choose to combine with them. And that's how those hard-coded condition works, is basically I've overwritten the party level thing. And this is now just a parameter to tell me which line of code I'm running. I'm running a line of code that checks for a random living ally. There's other ones like, for example, we'll look at the goat. Yeah, the goat, if party level is 8 or above, that one there basically checks to see if that parameter is set to 8, and then if it does, it runs a line of code there, which checks for a random dead ally. The goat scream actually is just a revive ability. That's all it is. But anyway, yeah, that's just one of the things I was able to pull off with that particular idea. Okay, let's do another guide. What do we have next? Yeah, let's do the vines. Now hold on. I want to kind of keep this in order. The way I implemented them in the database is not the order in which they are encountered. Snakes are the ones that are probably encountered next. Because yeah, in the Bloodstone Mine, it's slimes, bats, snakes, thralls. And Thrall I should actually probably put earlier on the list, because it's quite literally the first enemy you encounter at the Hollow Keep. So I'll probably do that, and then I'll just adjust the numbers. But let's do the Snek next. Snek. And let's grab a battler. Snek. That doesn't say Snek, that says snake. Yeah, that should be fine there. And description. How do you describe a snake? Oh, hold on. No, select the right line. There we go. What are snakes? They're not reptiles. Are they? Actually, yeah, what is a snake? It's not a... Is it its own thing? It's not an amphibian, it's not a reptile. Is it just technically a mammal? I actually don't know. Anyway, I'll set the description aside for now. I'll come back to that for a second. Strengths. High crit chance. High crit change. High crit chance. There we go. Yeah, it's got high crit chance. It doesn't really have any other particular strengths. You know, decent attack, but not overwhelming compared to anything else. Its main strength is just the high crit chance. Now, its weakness is low magical attack. So, I mean, if you've got something like reptiles, really? Are snakes reptiles? Shows what I know. Not exactly educated on the biology of snakes. Lucky us, this isn't a snake. You're correct. It is a snake. Anyway, yeah. So, high critical hit chance, low magical attack, and slightly low defense and agility. Although I don't think I want to necessarily highlight every single thing. It just the main critical things. So high crit chance, very low magical damage, because there isn't actually a stat that I can refer to that the player will immediately understand. Because magical attack or spirit is not it's not something that the player has. Players just have damage, dex, defense, resistance, and weapon damage applies to magical attacks as well. So in this case, I should just kind of specify very low magical damage. Unique traits. It actually doesn't have one. Its unique trait is that it has high crit chance. Which, that is actually another thing I want to do, though, is I want to implement more unique traits for certain enemies. Not totally fair. Snakes are... why is the chat doing this to me? Why is the chat doing this to me? Not totally fair. Snakes are a weird one in general. Yeah, I do actually want to add some more unique traits to some of the enemies that don't already have them. Just having high critical hit chance, I don't really know if that's enough. What do steaks? What do steaks do? What do snacks do? Yeah, I don't know. I may want to revisit this one as well, actually. I've honestly been struggling with combat, trying to figure out ways to make it a little bit more fully fleshed out and feel dynamic and engaging, and instead of just like a slog no matter where you are or where you go. Okay, I'm gonna ignore this one for the time being, just because I'm realizing that I probably don't actually have enough to wait, what? Oh, no, that's not what I meant to do. There we go, that's better. I don't have enough to turn that into really a fully fleshed out enemy right now. It's really just nothing more than something that hits hard. The bat, I'm gonna have to lower you a little bit. I'm gonna carefully position you to the center of that box. There we go. We'll go with a bat instead. Bats are mammals, I believe. A winged mammal. That's how you spell mammal, right? Yeah, no, 2 M's, mammal. A winged mammal that uses sonar for detection and navigation. Is that the right word? I would assume so. And the thing about that is that even though they are blind, because they are bats, they use sonar, which actually gives them heightened senses, so they actually have a higher hit rate. But they have very, very low health, and they have very high agility and evasion, and they come in packs. So, strengths. We'll say, okay, first off, high dex. Offensive stat first. High dex. Not very high, but high. High evasion. Yes. High evasion, high evasion, high hit. Hit is also an offensive stat, so we'll do that one first. High hit. Wait, is it hit or accuracy? What have I actually done for the labeling in that? I should know this by now. I think it's accuracy. ACC. ACC, yeah, okay. So high dex, high accuracy, high evasion. There we go. Weaknesses, very low HP. That's about it, really, is very low HP. But it is a weakness. They definitely, they will go down in one hit. Very low HP. Unique traits. Often appears in hordes of 2 to 6. Is that enough? Do I just leave it at that? Or do I clarify it's 2 to 6 bats? Often appears in hordes of 2 to 6. Often appears in hordes of 2 to 6. That makes sense to me. Is somebody else going to read that and understand what that means? Basically, the whole point with bats is that they don't necessarily appear solo. They'll usually appear, you know, okay, one, like, almost every enemy in the game you'll fight, you could potentially fight just one in a group. But bats, you'll actually, I shouldn't say often, it's always appears in hordes of 2 to 6. Yeah, because if there's a few enemies in the game that are horde enemies where they have very, very low health. They'll basically go down on one hit, but they appear in larger groups, and they'll never appear alone. I also want to check something real quick. Okay, no, I'm going to keep that consistent. I'd assume it just means bats. Yeah, okay, so I'll leave that like that. Always appears in hordes of 2 to 6. Okay. Yeah, okay, we'll leave it with that. Select that, crop, hide the background, export, done. Yep, good. Alright, now let's get the battlers, pictures, projects, guide, bring it over, done. Oh, I just realized I did not actually name it correctly. It is 209, it should be 210. There we go. Okay, back to the config. We'll add this one in as well. When 217, name bat, guide, oop, too far, 210, icon index, we'll make it 869. And now this is where I actually should have done multiples, so we'll just do this. We'll select that, remove that, there we go, paste it here, and this is configs 216 to 217. And I'm just going to keep it as a for loop so that I can easily expand on this. And that one take outside of the if it's equal to nil, and it'll refresh every time that time. Just for testing purposes, I will have to make a note. Fix this. Multiple asterisks, that's how I find things. There are lots of times I'll be like, oh, this is temporary, and I mark it with multiple asterisks, and then every now and then I'll go through my codes and I'll just like search for this, and if I can't find it, then it's like, okay, that's good. I haven't forgotten anything. Probably not good coding practice, but I actually never learned code. I am self-taught, so it works for me. For IN 216 to 217, there we go. And that should reveal all the guides that we need. I should actually move this over so that it's in the right, in front of the right line of code. There we go. Yes, okay. Oh, and now let's add the icon for the snake. I definitely am going to want to make those more a different color. I don't like that. I don't like the red, but it's driving me nuts that I can't figure out why that's doing it. like that. So we'll do it that way. There we go. Let's bump that up a little bit. We'll select a 24 by 24 pixel box, center that, copy, paste, get rid of the bat, bring this guy down, there. And probably didn't actually need to do it that way because I just realized I need to remove the edge of the border as well. There. Yeah, that should work. Okay, let's see how that works. Let's see how it looks. Replace, export, test. Why? Why is there no icon suddenly? What did I do? Oh, right, I changed the icon IDs, that's why. So that's 868, that was this one. So, 2, 3, 4, so this is 864, 864, so this is 880, and that's 881. There we go. Now it should work. Hey, there we go. Yeah, you know what? I don't mind that icon. I think the border does make it look at least like it's supposed to be there. And it is kind of identifying, like, this is a snapshot of this enemy. It's not the full picture. And the full picture is actually in the guide itself. So I think it's good for quick sorting. I just don't like the red background. I think I want to change that for sure. But no, that looks okay. For just a basic summary overview of the things that you've fought, I think this will work. I just need to find a way to make sure that it auto-populates. So, ooh, that's a question. Okay, here's a thought. What if, based on the dungeons that we've previously explored, we could purchase these as entries? Because we have an entire character who doesn't actually have much purpose beyond respecking our skills. That's all she does. But everybody else, for the most part, offers some other service. Just as an example, I mean, Jess, she has the job board where we can actually take missions, and the pain settings where we can adjust difficulty options. That one character offers two different services, both of which are very valuable. Jafar only has the item shop, but that's valuable enough on its own that he doesn't need to offer any other service. I'm going to walk through walls for this. Same with Davenport, just offers the shop, but he also offers crafting with the materials that we have gathered. Emily just offers the armor shop, but again, very valuable on its own, doesn't need any extra. And then even when you look at Raphael, he offers to increase your item capacity. You know, that's valuable. My clock is going off in the background, and that's probably coming through on the microphone, and there's nothing I can do about it, so you get to listen to my clock chiming in the background. But yeah, Raphael offers capacity upgrades for your backpack or your storage, but he also offers to appraise items to reveal what their prefixes or special effects do. So even he offers multiple services. Whereas Lucille, up here, she doesn't really offer much of anything. She just offers a respec, which is useful, but once you get to a point where, you know, you're spec'd out how you want to be, yeah, you might respec a couple of times throughout the game, but you're probably not going to be doing it so often that she's going to be anywhere near as valuable a party member as all the other ones. What if we gave her the option of another service where we could purchase entries to our bestiary from her for monsters that we've encountered based on the dungeons we've previously explored? I don't know, is that bad design? Because at that point you've already gone through the dungeon, you've already fought the monsters? Is it you know, maybe she can offer them prior to you going to that dungeon. Just as soon as you get access to it, she can offer that so that you can kind of plan ahead if you want to. I'm all for finding more and creative uses to spend gold, because otherwise the only thing you can really use it on is buying equipment or upgrading your capacity. So having the option to purchase entries from Lucille gives her more usefulness as a character. It's easily trackable, and then you can also just specifically purchase the ones that you want if you don't necessarily want to know about everything. That's a thought. I have been trying to find ways to make Lucille more useful. Now the question again, though, is why would Lucille know about this? I need to find some sort of lore reason. It makes sense for Raphael to offer what he offers. He is a, you know, former smuggler. He is all about stashing equipment and goods and learning to carry as much as possible, so him being able to increase your capacity makes sense, and him being a bit of a treasure hunter and having an eye for loot means that he'd be able to appraise the stuff that you find. That makes sense for Raphael. Why would Lucille offer monster entries? It could be because she's somewhat of a religious figure. She's studied religious texts. She studies monsters. She studies evil. And so she, you know, has done... She's come across, you know, readings of various different types of monsters in whatever religious text she reads or whatever, and she can then offer some insight into that based on her research or whatever. I'm not really sure if that's a viable lore answer, and I'm still honestly not sure if that's a good idea, making her sell the entries. But for something that's arguably optional, it's not necessarily required. I wouldn't want it to be like super expensive. I wouldn't want it to be like, oh, you know, every entry is 500 gold or something, maybe even just like 50. Encountering them at all and them being able to buy entries on them could be cool if you're confused about an enemy. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would be nice to... well... I'm thinking of ways that I could implement this as you encounter them, where you just get the entry. But I'm also realizing that the method that I'm thinking of would crash the game. Or it would potentially cause a stack overflow. Because it wouldn't... I would have to be able to implement a check to see if you already have the entry. Which I think I actually have already done, in one way or another. Otherwise, how would Raphael know not to sell us the same backpack items over and over again? I would have to check that particular script that I implemented, because that one is custom. This is something that I designed basically from the ground up, and I think I called it the feature shop, where you can sell concepts. You're not actually selling items, you're just selling a concept. But that affects something in the game. So for example, when you purchase this, literally you are purchasing and spending gold on a variable increasing by 2, which then increases your backpack capacity by 2. Same with the appraisal system. You're not purchasing this item or selling this item, you're purchasing the concept of that item being appraised, which then adds an entry to your guide. So I mean, clearly, I've already done the system with Raphael for loot. I just am going to be doing the same system with Lucille for monsters. You know what? I kind of like it. I kind of like the idea. I get the feeling that some players may get pissed off about it, and maybe like, I don't want to spend money on this. Like, why can't I just learn about it? But also, I don't know. I guess it's going to be up to the player whether or not they think it's valuable enough to spend money on. And it doesn't have to be expensive. I could also potentially change the cost of certain monster entries based on how valuable they are. For example, the entry for new bloods and vampires could be higher priced because that's more valuable information as opposed to like a slime. If all the enemies in the game are monsters, she would work, but what about human enemies if you have those in the future? Because then it won't make much sense for her to sell info on that. That is true. Now, I actually haven't really thought about that. The extent of human enemies in this game is Thralls, which are the minions of vampires. Like, they're just the mindless meat shields that vampires control. The vampires themselves, which I feel like both of those would make sense for her to know about. And then the only other human enemies in the game are the Royal Guard and Seth that you fight at the end of the Shrouded Peaks. But that's kind of like a boss enemy, and I don't know if I actually want to sell boss entries. Boss entries I may want to... Boss entries I could actually just have given to you. Those are ones that could be like, once you've beaten this boss, you get the entry. You don't have to pay for that one. But then is that going to devalue the lesser entries? Is it going to be like, well, I get this boss one for free, why can't I get the entry for a slime for free? I know I'm overthinking this, but I like implementing new systems and seeing how they work within the game and seeing how players engage with them. Yeah, then she makes sense to me. Yeah, okay. Well, you know what? Let's give that a try. I'm probably going to go for about another 15-20 minutes here. I'm not going to go super late because I do have a class to get to later. I train in jiu-jitsu classes on Thursdays, so I am definitely going to want to prioritize that. But so far, I think the stream's gone fairly well. Nothing seems to have broken, which is good. I'm happy about that. But yeah, we'll probably end this fairly soon. Okay, so this is the module for the feature shop. That's all the item the information for the item storage, including cost, ID, icon index. I think even text color is included in that. Those are all the epic weapon prefixes, rare weapon prefixes. Yeah, those are all the prefixes. Ah, right. And then I had the ID of the weapon. Oh, but that's specifically for legendary and unique stuff. That's not something I need to worry about, I don't think. Okay, so I am going to need to think this through as to how I can get a new entry for this. I have to actually remember how this whole thing works. Create a list of upgrades. That's for the item backpack, item storage, weapon backpack, weapon storage, armor backpack, armor storage. Oh, right, because that's basically saying this is what your storage level is currently at. If it's at that, this is the one that's on offer. Select an item to appraise. Update item selection. Reveal or conceal guide. Oh, this is going to take a little bit more focus and effort to actually get working because I feel like I deliberately coded this shop to work for two separate concepts and it's not very flexible or versatile. So coding in some flexibility and versatility to this may take a little bit more work than I expect. Unless... Okay, let's see here for a second. Weapon names, weapon IDs. Okay. Let me look at... Get a full list of equips, populate data with unappraised items. Oh, right, okay, okay. Note, that makes sense. Aha, okay. Yep, this is hard-coded for two separate options. So that's a Boolean value. I could change that to a numeric value and then do a case when situation where it's like when 0, when 1, else, so that it's select an item to appraise, select an upgrade, select a monster entry or something like that. Okay, refresh header, where is that called? A couple different places. Okay, refresh header at the start, yeah. If appraise, where is that initialized? Oh, I see. So when I call that script, I'm passing in a value to say, is it this or that? Now that's easy enough to change to a numeric value instead of Boolean, which would allow me to offer more options for a shop than just those two. Let me first see exactly how that's getting called. Let's talk to Raphael here. Scene appraise.new. Scene appraise.new true, because the default is false. Yes, okay. That is going to be, I think, the first step right there. Yeah. So we'll go appraise is equal to 0. We're going to set that to a numeric value. Appraise is equal to appraise, good. Okay, and then everywhere this is referenced, I need to make sure that it actually is referencing a numeric value. So this is if appraise is equal to true. The default was false. So we'll go case appraise when 0, when 1. This actually should be here, and then this should be up here, and I'm going to leave that the way it is there for now, and then that will allow me to implement more ways of utilizing this script. Now let me make sure that it's getting populated correctly. So if appraise is equal to 1, where's the else on that? There it is. Yeah, that's fine. We'll fix that later, but that's good for now. And if appraise, we'll go case appraise. Nice track. As much as I want to stay and watch, it's been a busy day for me. Good luck and keep up the great work. Hey, thanks, no problem. Yeah, hope you're doing good, Anne Laurent. Yeah, actually, oh, geez, you were like one of the people that was probably the biggest follower of Bloodstained Hands. Good to see you on the stream. So, hope your day goes well. And yeah, there's going to be more streams coming out, so stay tuned for those. But thanks for tuning in. But anyway, yes, back to what we were doing here. Case appraise. When 1, it's going to be that one. When 0, it's going to be this one. Else that one. There we go. Good. I think that's good. And then this basically is going to be select a monster entry. Monster might not be the right word. Enemy. Let's go with that. Okay. Appraise, appraise. If appraise is equal to 1. Okay. I know this is going to cause some issues, but we're going to see if I can at least get it to work the first time without a game crash, which would be fantastic if I can. And if not, then we'll throw mud at the wall and see what sticks. But that should fix everything there. So this should work. This should actually run without a crash. I didn't get a game crash already, which is good. Oh yeah, okay. Kind of figured. Text equal to item.name. What? That's where it crashed? That's not even in the same script. What did I do? What did I do? Wow. Boy, did I mess that up. I mean, I can fix it easily enough. I just don't know what I did wrong. Case appraise. Oh, hold on. Did I screw that up? Nope. No, that's right. Appraise is equal to 1, else. Yeah, okay. Item window dot refresh. Data appraise. No, I know exactly what happened. I'm refreshing a window with a Boolean value, but that's not a Boolean value anymore. I think I know exactly where that is, though. I will have to check here. Window appraise. That is up here. This is that Boolean value. Refresh with the data and the appraisal value. That's fine. Okay. And then here, draw item. There we go. Wait, what? Wait, what? Wait, what? Oh, okay, here it is. Yep. Okay. Case appraise. When 1. When 0. And then this one here would be when 1. And then this one here goes there. So right now, whether it's 0 or literally anything else, it's just going to run the storage upgrade shop. But if it's set to 1, it should run the appraisal shop. Yes. Okay, I think, yeah, that should fix it. So let's take a look. Okay, so far that worked. Let's check the other one. Yes, it worked. Okay, all right, we're back to normal. So now, let's do one last test. We're going to go back to the hollow keep here. We're just going to, on this fence post, same as characters, action button, run this line of code, but we're going to say what happens if you pass in the value of 2. And if I've done everything correctly, I think it should open up the storage shop. Yes, it did. Good. So now we can have Lucille run that line of code to open up her own shop with monster entries or enemy entries. And it even says select an enemy entry. So that actually did work. So the next thing would be to actually populate this shop with enemy entries. And the first step for that would actually be to create them. Now here's the thing. I want to double check. WID 145. Does that align with guide entry 145? Yes, it does. That is the first entry in the loot categories of guides. So, this is a list of guide entries. From 145 to 209, these oh, I see. Okay, yeah, 145 to 184, and then as well 209, and then 185 to 208. Let me double check that. 145, these are all loot entries, all the way down to 209. Yes, okay, good. The prefix guides are 210, but that's its own unique thing where it's not just taking it's not just revealing a guide, it's revealing a specific part of a specific guide. This is really what I want. I want to make it so that this gets revealed for guides 216 and onward. So, first things first, let's create an array containing these two guides. And we will call it enemy ID in very, very condensed fashion. And that will be an array containing two values, because that's all we have so far, 216 and 217. Yes? 216, 217. Yes. Okay. Now, that is fine. Nothing we need to worry about there. Pretty sure, yep. The refresh, that should be fine. The draw item, okay. We want this, because we want it to replicate the appraisal guide, not the storage guide. So draw item name, yep, select, yeah, select self-contents, draw text. Yeah, we'll just say it's 50 gold for now. We're not gonna, we'll determine the costs later. This is the one that we're gonna want here. Window description. Wait, did I already do that? No, hold on. I am gonna, there's probably gonna be some adjustments to this, so I'm gonna definitely want to make it, ooh. No, this is actually where I do want a description window, not a stats window. Because the stats window is going to be drawing from the stats of an actual item, and there's no item here. This is a concept. We're not appraising an item, we're appraising an enemy. Fairly certain I've got that right. And this is where it gets a little messy. Case appraise when 1. This may actually make it a lot cleaner. Oops, there we go. Yep, there we go. There we go. When 0, create that. When 1, create this. Else, we're going to do the monster one, and then if we need to change it later, we can just change this to when 2, but I always want to have a failsafe, just in case this gets called for some weird reason and nothing gets passed through. Always want to have a failsafe in order. So, that's the storage one, so we don't want to copy that code. We want roughly the same as this, and then we'll modify it as needed. So how's that going to look? Let's see. Here. Get a full, so we don't actually need a full list of equipped items. This is, actually, we probably don't want any of this. Actually, yeah, I'm realizing we don't want any of this. Nope. We are trying to replicate the concept of the appraising items. We're kind of taking a little bit of both. Aha. Aha. Okay, I'm actually going to have to create something resembling this, because this is all the information for a line item. Oh, I've missed coding. But I will say that this is Such bad spaghetti code, it's not even funny. Okay, this is where I need to implement nope. How do I comment again? There we go. Create a list of enemy entries. Okay, that's fine. Yep. Yep. Yep, that's good. Okay. Select an enemy entry to purchase. There we go. That may not be necessary. We'll see. Okay. And this is the line of code that actually determines what happens when you select an entry based on what category you're in. And then this reveals and conceals the guides. Okay. Okay. This is making a lot more sense to me now. But I'm also recognizing just how much more work I have ahead of me. What did I do? Oh yeah, that's not actually a comment. There we go. This is my identifier to say, hey, go back to this line of code and fix it. Yeah, it's not going to create a list of entries because we don't have any, but at least it did that. So I've created my own little workspace, I guess you could say, that I can now do with what I want to create an enemy shop. And I think I'm gonna pick that up again another day, because right now I'm looking at this realizing I have actually a ton of work ahead of me. I need to create an array of every entry item with I believe this is an icon index. This is, I believe, a text color. Yep. This is the name of the item. This is the description of the item. This is the cost of the item. And then I believe this is a variable that gets adjusted. That's what this array is for. Yep, that is exactly what that is. So I need to create something similar to this for enemy entries, where I have the icon that gets displayed. I can probably omit the text color, probably not necessary for this. The name of the entry that you're purchasing, a description for what that entry contains, the cost of what that entry is, and then probably a guide ID to be revealed. I will then need to, once I have that set up, correspond that to the IDs here. Actually, I probably don't need this at all, because I can just get the ID from that value. So this here is unnecessary. I just want to make sure I didn't implement that anywhere else. No, okay, that is unnecessary. And then essentially what I'm going to have to do is make it so that each different part of this script draws information from the appropriate parts. Yeah, this is the description window, not the item window or the stats window. This is what I need for the monster items, but now I'm going to have to implement different functionality for this so that if it's like, well, if appraisal is set to 0, then display the upgrade item. But if it's set to anything else, then display the description for the monster entry. And then same thing here, the cost, I need to make sure that it's drawing from the correct value. And then I will probably need to do something like what I've got down here for actually revealing guides and making sure that that is drawing from the ID from the correct part of that array entry. If I can do that and pull all that off, yep, then it should work. It should work. So, I'm going to fix this right now. There. It is no longer auto-revealing guide entries. No longer need fixed. And now, the next time I see that guide entry will be when I actually implement the script that shows that allows me to purchase those entries. Yeah. So if I can develop a way to make it so that that shop sells those entries, and I can see these entries in this thing without brute forcing them in, we're in the money. That's what we want. But I think we're actually going to end this stream here, because we've gotten a lot done. We created a couple enemy guides, went over a couple of the aspects of development of Thrall here, which that is honestly the whole purpose of the stream. It's not necessarily to showcase every aspect of development, but actually to resume development, because I have spent way too long not working on this game. And what do artists need to get things done? An audience. What do procrastinators need to get things done? A deadline. I am both of those. I'm an artist and a procrastinator. So I'm hoping that doing something live for an audience, even if it's an audience of one, hello, everyone still in the chat, then I can hopefully get more done than if I just sat on my hands doing nothing. So with that, we're going to end the stream, and I want to do more of this. I want to actually do some more live streams. I want to get back into development and do some hopefully fun and interesting stuff on stream. But yeah, I just want to say thanks to anybody who dropped in and showed some support. I really appreciate you dropping by. So I'm going to try to do this more consistently. I'm going to try to set up a schedule. I'm thinking probably Saturdays are the day that I do this most frequently. That's the day I have the most time. So we may actually start up another stream this Saturday. No promises there, but we'll see what happens. See you, Name and Original. Thanks for popping in. I really appreciate your thoughts and your insight. So yeah, with that, we're going to end this. Let me make sure I press the right button.